Now this wasn't actually the original video I was planning. I started with the missions in mission mode, but then I figured I should start out with some easier missions. If this video does well enough, I might make another video on those missions. Well, it didn't get that many views, but who cares? I'm making a sequel anyway. Hello Luiginoids, this is LuigiXRules doing another challenge video. In this one, I'm going to see if I can beat all of the missions in Pikmin 3 Deluxe's mission mode without growing any new Pikmin. Similar to some of the missions in the side stories, in battle enemies you just have to defeat all the enemies. You do not need to take them back to one of the onions. The main difference though is that you're usually given less Pikmin and less time. So let's see if we can beat these missions without growing any new Pikmin. Now there's actually going to be a twist with this challenge video. I'm doing it in a ranking style. Basically I'm going to show the missions in order of what I think was the easiest to the hardest for this challenge. They'll each be in one of these three categories: easy, or expert. And again, this is my personal opinion. And just to be clear, here are the rules. I have to beat every mission in the battle enemies section of mission mode without growing any new Pikmin. Except for Formidable Oak Remix, since you can't grow any new Pikmin in that stage anyway. It has to be in single player and on the deluxe version, so hooray for terrible gyro controls! I allowed there to be Pikmin deaths, but you can do it deathless for an extra challenge. Without further ado, let's begin. In the Rust Yard, you're only given 6 minutes. You only need 4. Seriously, this mission is insanely easy, especially for being one of the later missions. The only maybe hard part is getting the claw off of this peckish aristocrab, but there's really not much else to say. Even the Crush Blight isn't really a challenge if you just destroy the crystal with rock Pikmin and then finish it off with blue Pikmin. The Forgotten Cove is a remake of the Forest Navel from the original Pikmin. So, in the Battle Enemies version, they put rock walls where they were in the Forest Navel, and to ensure you can destroy them all, they give you plenty of bomb rocks. However, since we don't need to bring anything back to the onions, we have plenty of bomb rocks to use on the enemies instead. If you couldn't guess, this makes this stage really easy. Nothing really poses a threat because of how many bomb rocks you have. Even the bug-eyed Crawman isn't a problem if you just feed it a bomb rock and throw a blue Pikmin at it. It's time to be a jerk, 'cause it's Christmas. References aside, this mission is pretty easy too. Since you're intended to utilize all the types of Pikmin, you're given a decent amount of each. It's a relatively large field, and you have relatively little time to do it, but I don't know, I just really didn't have a problem with it. Just make sure you keep all of your winged Pikmin for this gate, and make sure you don't lose too many of the other types of Pikmin, and it'll be a piece of cake. In this snowy remix stage, the captains are all split up, and you need to hand around the different types of Pikmin to take care of the different enemies. But that's it. You really don't need to unite the captains, as you can kill this guy through this hole. There is this enemy-filled nightmare behind this glass wall, but with the spicy spray you can take it down without much trouble. If this was a deathless run, this might have been more of a challenge, but as it stands, because of the relatively high amounts of Pikmin and time you're given, this mission is pretty easy. Ah, the first of the original 5 stages to appear on this list. There's plenty of enemies to defeat, and with such a small amount of Pikmin, that can be a bit of a challenge. However, many of these enemies are found in groups, so they're pretty easy to take down. Of course, there's one glaring exception to this that puts it in the tier, the Bull Bear. As far as I know, there's no bomb rocks or spicy spray in this mission, so you'll have to take it on with just a few Pikmin. Actually, there might be a bomb rock or some spicy spray in one of these eggs. It's actually not too hard, though, with the reduced health of the deluxe version. So why didn't I put this in easy tier? Well, that's mainly because of the Bulbear, but also because nothing about this really strikes out as trivial, at least compared to the easy missions. If you don't like where this is, just remember that this is my opinion, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Silver Lake is another one of the first 5 stages, so it's also relatively small. This, in tandem with the decent amount of Pikmin and Bomb Rock you're given, is a recipe for a decently easy level. Split up your captains and save the bigger enemies for when you're reunited to make this level go by without too much issue. Not even the burrowing Snaggart stands too much of a chance if you play your cards right. Again though, why is this one an if it's so easy? Well, that's mainly because it's a little difficult to get the Bomb Rocks, and it's pretty easy to lose some blue Pikmin underwater. Again, if this was deathless, this might have been higher up, but as it stands, it's I don't know about you, but to me this desert doesn't really look as parched as the title would suggest. Anyway, Thirsty Desert is the first level that I'd say can be a bit annoying, and it's not because of the many types of Bulborbs. You have bomb rocks for those. No, the annoying part is the Wogpoles, which can be kind of difficult to defeat. And when you defeat these ones, you've got to make sure that the blue Pikmin don't bring them back to their onion. Other than that, there's the desiccated skitter leaves, which can easily take some Pikmin. Overall, it's more difficult for sure, but the bomb rocks really prevent me from putting this in the expert tier. Hey, remember the Wogpoles and desiccated skitter leaves from literally 10 seconds ago? Well, they're back, although I'd argue they're in easier to defeat locations. There's more big enemies too, but you still have bomb rocks for those. What really sets this one apart is the Spectralids. These oversized butterflies are extremely annoying to take out, especially with the awkward gyro controls of the Deluxe version. You have to step back and wait for them to touch down, but oftentimes they fly away before you even hit them. I'd call this stage basically a harder version of Thirsty Desert because of the big easy enemies and small annoying enemies. This next mission's got it all. Bottomless pits, annoying enemies, a lot of ground to cover, and a pretty short time limit. How is Clockwork Chasm only eh? Well, again, it's because of the plethora of bomb rocks you're given. These things are extremely necessary in order to do good on this mission. You've just got to make sure that the swooping snitch bugs don't decide to use them for themselves. Oh yeah, and did I mention the body longlegs? Yeah, you've got to make sure you save some of the bomb rocks for it, too. This mission is the last one, so you'd expect it to be a challenge, and while it was harder than most of the ones on the third row, I still didn't find it all too difficult. Now, I'm not trying to argue that it's easy, of course, but as long as you're careful, I'd argue that it's not hard enough to be in the expert tier. Speaking of... 13 minutes for one mission! This one's got to be easy, right? Well, my experience would say otherwise. While you're given plenty of bomb rocks and even some spicy spray, I had a little difficulty with the Tropical Wilds remix. For one, a bunch of the Pikmin in this mission are found way up here where I don't normally go. Also, there's some enemies scattered around that can be a pain to round up if you forget about them. Luckily, you can save a few of the bomb rocks by not blowing up this wall and killing these guys with the armored cannon beetle larva. To top it all off, you have to fight not one, but two Baldy Longlegs. And these you have to fight legitimately, because there's no platform for the bomb rocks like last time. So this mission was difficult for me, but it's not higher on the list because I feel like there's a better strategy than the one I used. I don't know about you, but Garden of Hope Remix was always one of the toughest stages for me. You're only given 7 minutes to take out 4 burrowing snagrets, some swooping snitch bugs, and a couple of insomnia bulborbs. While you're provided with plenty of bomb rocks and spicy spray, I've still always had a hard time with this stage, even without the challenge. The strategy I found works best is to get the rock Pikmin on these burgeoning spiderwarts and use spiced up winged Pikmin to take out the enemies. Also, you can skip building most of these bridges by just throwing a captain across. The strategy worked out pretty well, but probably due to my old thoughts of this being difficult, I'm putting it in the expert tier. Really, though, if you're having a hard time with this mission, you should try this strategy. A link to the full run is in the description. Yes, you're seeing this footage correctly. The first Battle Enemies mission is one of the hardest for this challenge. Tropical Forest tries to introduce the concept of the Battle Enemies missions by providing you with plenty of pellets to grow your Pikmin with. Of course, we can't do that, so we've got to work with the few Pikmin we're given. We do have a few bomb rocks to use, so make sure that you use them on the Bulborbs to reduce casualties. So far, it seems pretty easy, but there's 2 returning foes that are out to get us, Spectralids and a Baldy Longlegs. The Longlegs is very difficult to take out with how few Pikmin you have, and the Spectralids are just annoying. I beat it on my first try, but if this was a deathless run, this mission would easily be number 1 hardest. Most of the missions on the bottom row have been fairly easy so far, but with Beastly Caverns, that couldn't be farther from the truth. Beastly Caverns is one of the biggest missions in terms of the size of the level, but you're only given 6 minutes to complete it. And it's not like the enemies are that easy either. You've got Skitterleaves to take out with winged Pikmin, Arachnoids, which are kind of hard to take out, and a whole lot of water enemies in a really small area. It's pretty easy to lose winged Pikmin when crossing this area, so when you do, just hope that the Pluckering Blennows miss. Then, when you've got to take blue Pikmin into the area, you've got to hope that you don't lose too many of those either. On top of that, you have to take out all of the rest of the enemies on this large map too. If it weren't for these blue candy pop buds, this would have easily been the most difficult mission for this challenge. But what is the most difficult mission then? Admittedly, I wasn't sure whether to put this one at the top. I mean, you're given 10 minutes and quite a few bomb rocks to complete the Twilight River remix. What's so hard that makes it number 1? Well, looking at the footage, I don't know exactly. Maybe it's because I tried to cross the river before the bridge was built, or maybe it's because I always go to the bomb rock area last, but I really struggled with this one. The reason I was so hesitant to put this one at number 1 was because there's got to be a better strategy than the one I used. In the end, though, I decided that this list is based on my personal experience, and I should put this one at number 1 because it's the one I personally had the hardest time with. Alright, that's all of the Battle Enemies missions done without growing any new Pikmin. That means we're done, right? Well, there's actually 2 missions in the Collect Treasure mode that have you growing Pikmin. Now, you do need to bring the enemies back to the Onion in order to get a Platinum Medal on the missions, so that means we can't do them, right? Well, you see, even if you bring an enemy back to an Onion and grow some Pikmin, if you don't pluck them, then nothing really changes gameplay-wise. So for these 2 missions, I'm going to say that you can bring an enemy to an Onion as long as you don't pluck the resulting Pikmin. Can these 2 missions be done? Let's find out. We'll just go in order of appearance for these 2 missions. That means up first is a variation of Twilight Hollow. In this variation, there are piles of gold everywhere and lots of Pikmin to carry them with. Despite this, it's actually not too easy to pick up everything because there's a lot of heavy things pretty far away from the base. On top of that, there's just so many treasures, enemies, and gold piles scattered about that it's hard to get Pikmin on all of them in time. The strategy that I found works best is to get winged Pikmin on these gold piles as fast as possible. You'll also want to build this bridge so that the rock Pikmin can carry some of the heavier things back. Also, remember to pick up the spicy spray. If you don't, you'll have a rough time bringing everything back in time. Overall, this mission is really difficult, especially compared to the Battle Enemies missions, and considering how hard Beastly Caverns was in Battle Enemies, I'm not looking forward to the Collect Treasures version. Speaking of which... 12 minutes, 30 Pikmin, 1 mission. Beastly Caverns is by far the hardest mission for this challenge because of how big the area is and how few Pikmin you're given. Where do I even begin with this one? Well, to start, there's plenty of gold piles everywhere, there's a ton of things relatively far away from the base. Of the 30 Pikmin in the level, you only start off with 20 of them, and 5 of the ones you get later are purple Pikmin. There's heavy fruits by the base that are hard to get purple Pikmin on, there's these stupid swarming sheer grubs, and there's an entire bull bear. While you do get bomb rocks for this mission, because you're trying to use the fastest routes, you actually need to use them on these rock walls. Really, there's just so many things that you have to collect that it's very hard to get everything back in time. Here's a sped up version of the final attempt. And with that, I can finally conclude that it is possible to beat every mission in mission mode without growing any new Pikmin. Jeez, the amount of variation in these levels was crazy. From the super easy rust yards to the extremely difficult beastly caverns, you can tell that this challenge did not treat each mission equally. I would highly recommend that you try this for yourself. It's hard to say if this would have been easier on the Wii U version because on the one hand you have easier controls, but on the other hand the enemies have more HP. I guess it's really up to you which one you choose. Thanks for watching this video. My next challenge video will be on a game that I have not played on this channel yet. Heck, it's going to be on a completely new series. In the meantime, if you haven't checked out the rest of my challenge videos yet, you should do so. There will be a playlist in the description. Other than that though, I wish you happy days until next time. Goodbye.